The GPS says I'm 4 minutes away, but I've been sitting in the parking lot of a Walgreens for the past 20 minutes. My sister texted me this morning. So excited you're coming. Mom and Dad are going to love having us all together. I read it 3 times. Then I put my phone face down on the passenger seat and stared at the windshield until the words stopped making me feel anything. I start the car. My parents bought this house when I was 12, a 4-bedroom colonial on a cul-de-sac in Naperville, Illinois. The kind of neighborhood where everyone has a Ring doorbell and the lawn service, and the same exact wreath on their door from October through January. I used to ride my bike in loops around that cul-de-sac for hours. There wasn't much else to do when you were the daughter nobody was quite watching. The iron gate, not real iron, just painted aluminum that my father had installed 3 years ago when he decided the house needed to look more substantial, swings open as I pull in. My mother must have seen me on the camera. She's standing on the porch when I step out of the car. She's wearing a cream blouse and her hair is freshly blown out. She looks like she's hosting a magazine shoot. "You made it," she says, like I've done something impressive just by showing up. My sister is already here. Of course she is. Her silver Audi is parked in my father's spot, which means my father moved his Lexus to the street, which means nobody told my sister to park differently, which means I'll find somewhere on the block. I carry my own bag in. Nobody offers. The house smells like the Nest candle my mother burns specifically for company. Bamboo rice, something that costs $40 and makes the whole place smell like a hotel lobby. There are fresh flowers on the entry table. White peonies. There were flowers at my college graduation too, but those were left over from a church event down the street. My mother had grabbed them on the way to the venue. She'd mentioned it twice, like she wanted credit for the resourcefulness. My sister Brooke is in the kitchen. She's standing at the island the way she always stands in kitchens, like she owns it, like she materialized there and the kitchen simply arranged itself around her. She's 28, 3 years younger than me. She has my mother's bone structure and my father's confidence, and something entirely her own that I've never been able to name. Some quality that makes people want to keep looking at her. "There she is," she says, and she hugs me, and she means it. That's the thing about Brooke that makes everything harder. She's not mean. She's never been mean to me. She just exists in a different category of our family, and she doesn't seem to know it, and I've never found a way to explain it that doesn't make me sound like I'm unraveling. My father comes in from the back. He's wearing a collared shirt and the khakis he saves for occasions. This is an occasion. Their 35th wedding anniversary. 40-some guests coming tonight. A catered dinner, past appetizers, a bartender they hired from some event company in Downers Grove. "Sweetheart," he says. And he hugs Brooke first, even though I'm closer to him, even though I've just walked in, even though I haven't seen him in 4 months because I live 600 miles away in Charlotte and she lives 12 minutes from this house. I put my bag down at the foot of the stairs. I'll carry it up later. By 5 o'clock, the house is full. My parents' friends, the couples they've accumulated over 35 years of dinner parties and neighborhood associations, and the same church they've attended since before I was born. My aunt on my mother's side, who smells like Chanel number side, who smells like Chanel number turnil. 5, and calls everyone honey with the same warmth whether she means it or not. A handful of cousins. My father's business partner and his wife. Brooke's boyfriend, a guy named Scott, who shakes hands with a grip that means something to him. I'm stationed at the kitchen island, filling water glasses because I offered and nobody told me not to. It gives me something to do with my hands. The dining room has been arranged with 2 long tables. My parents' good table extended to its full length and a second folding table dressed to match. I can see the place cards from where I'm standing. My parents are at the head. Brooke is to my mother's left. Scott is next to Brooke. The rest of the family radiates out from there in a pattern that makes obvious, geometric sense. My place card is at the second table, near the window. Between my father's college roommate's wife, who I've met twice, and a cousin I don't actually know well on my father's side, who drives in from Rockford every year and spends most of the evening on his phone. I look at the card for a moment. I read my own name on it. Then I go back to filling water glasses. The toast happens at 7:15, after the salads and before the main course. My father stands up, and he's clearly been thinking about this, maybe even written notes on his phone, because he delivers it with a fluency that doesn't come naturally to him. He talks about the house they bought, the decision to stay in Illinois when they could have moved, The years that built something. He talks about Brooke. Our youngest has always had her mother's spirit, he says. The way she walks into a room and makes it warmer. 35 years ago, I didn't know I'd have a daughter who reminded me every day of why I married her mother, but here we are. People at the main table laugh softly. Someone says, "That is so beautiful." Brooke is smiling the way people smile when they're moved, but trying to be graceful about it. I am eating my salad. I do not stop eating. I put a bite of arugula in my mouth and I chew it, and I look at the centerpiece on my table, which is slightly smaller than the ones on the main table because the event company was one arrangement short. I know this because my mother told me when I asked matter-of-factly, like it was a logistical detail and not a metaphor I'd be turning over in my head for the rest of my life. My father finishes the toast. He lifts his glass. 30-some people lift theirs. He doesn't look at my table. The gift happens at 8. My mother announces it by tapping her champagne flute with a spoon. A sound that stills the entire room. And then she says that she and my father have something special for Brooke. Something they've been planning for a while. Something to celebrate, not just the anniversary, but the woman she's becoming. My cousin from Rockford looks up from his phone. Brooke's hands go to her mouth before the box is even fully out. It's a black jewelry case, the kind that doesn't need a logo because the weight of it says everything. My father opens it himself and holds it toward the light, and there it is, a Tiffany bracelet, the kind I've seen in the display case at the Magnificent Mile store. The kind I have priced once, twice, maybe more, the way you sometimes do things, just to have a number to put to a feeling. $4,200, maybe more with tax. The room makes the sound rooms make when something expensive appears. That collective intake, that unanimous recognition that something significant is happening, that everyone should be watching. "Oh my God," Brooke breathes. She's already crying a little. She holds out her wrist, and my father fastens it himself. My mother is covering her smile with her fingers. I watch my father's face while he fastens the clasp. He looks the way he looks in the videos from Brooke's college graduation, from her first apartment, from the holiday photos they always take in the front yard. He looks like a man who is exactly where he wants to be. I have a glass of white wine in my hand. I take a sip. I am aware, in a way I cannot fully explain, that I am not going to cry. I decided this in the parking lot of the Walgreens, probably. I made some quiet, unspoken agreement with myself that tonight was going to be information, not injury. My aunt leans over from the main table. "Isn't it gorgeous?" she says to me, meaning the bracelet. "It's beautiful," I say, and I mean it, and I hate that I mean it. The photo is my mother's idea. Someone, Scott, I think, suggests they do a proper family photo while everyone is dressed and together. And my mother agrees immediately, the way she agrees to anything that produces an image she can frame. She organizes it by the fireplace. She pulls my father in first, then Brooke, then Scott, then the aunts, then the cousins, and then she's adjusting Brooke's bracelet so it catches the light right and someone is counting and the phone goes up, and I am standing 6 feet away, near the doorway to the hall. Nobody called me over. I watched the photo happen. I watch my mother's smile. The one she reserves for photographs. The one that's been photographed so many times it has its own muscle memory. I watch my father put his arm around Brooke. I watch Scott stand where I would have stood if I had a Scott, or if anyone had thought to save a space. My cousin from Rockford sees me watching. He looks at me, then at the group, then back at me, and something moves across his face, some flicker of recognition or discomfort, and then he looks back at his phone. The camera clicks 3 times. My mother says, "Perfect." I go to the kitchen to get a glass of water. I drink the whole thing at the sink, looking out at the backyard, at the patio furniture they bought last spring that I have never sat on, at the string lights my father hung in a grid over the whole space, at everything that looks like a life I am adjacent to but not inside. I set the glass down carefully. I don't want to make noise. Then I go upstairs. I get my bag from the foot of the stairs on the way up. I haven't unpacked it yet, so there's nothing to gather. I take my coat from the hook by the back door. I say goodbye to my aunt on the way out because she'd worry, and I tell her I have a headache because it's easier. She touches my arm and says, "Drive safe, honey." I don't say goodbye to my parents. I think about it. I decide that anyone watching would notice the gap between how long it takes me to get to them and how long they take to register. I'm there. And I don't want to give anyone that information. I don't want anyone's pity or anyone's confusion. I want to leave cleanly, the way water leaves a surface. The aluminum gate opens automatically as I back out. I watch it close in my rearview mirror. My phone rings when I'm 40 minutes south on 55, somewhere between Joliet and Wilmington, where the highway flattens out and the sky gets very large and very dark. It's Lena. Lena has been my best friend since our first week at Northwestern. She was the one who found me in the common room at 2 in the morning, eating cereal out of the box, and sat down next to me without being asked and said, "Okay, what happened?" She has been saying that ever since, in various configurations, whenever the hour requires it. "How bad?" she says, because I texted her at 8:40 and the text just said, "leaving early." I tell her about the bracelet. I tell her about the toast. I tell her about the photo. There's a silence on her end that I know the shape of. "I need to tell you something," she says, "and I want you to pull over if you need to." "I'm fine. Tell me." "Marcus called me today." Marcus is my former business partner. We built a healthcare data analytics company together for 4 years, a scrappy, exhausting, exhilarating 4 years before he transitioned out to start something else. We've stayed close. He said he'd been trying to reach you all day. My phone was on silent during dinner. "The acquisition went through," she says. "Full board approval, 38 million Haley. They signed today." I'm driving 65 miles per hour in the right lane, Interstate 55, and the number moves through me like a current. $38 million. My company. The one I built in a 2-bedroom apartment in Charlotte, at a folding table I bought at a Target in the South End. During the 3 years when my parents asked me maybe 4 times what I was working on, and I said, "Software, healthcare sector," and they nodded and changed the subject to something Brooke was doing. The company I named Verity Solutions because I needed it to mean something true. "Are you okay?" Lena says. "I'm okay." And then, because it's her, I don't know what to do with this. "You don't have to do anything with it right now. You just drive." So I drive, past Wilmington, past Braceville. The highway keeps going, and the sky stays enormous, and I think about the folding table and the first client and the time I called my mother from the office at midnight when we almost lost everything, and she said she was sure it would work out, and got off the phone in 4 minutes because a show she liked was starting. I think about Lena sitting on my floor the night I thought I was done, eating takeout Thai and going through the numbers line by line until I saw the path again. I think about the photo, and then I stop thinking about it. I closed the deal formally 6 weeks later, in January, in a conference room on the 42nd floor of a building in uptown Charlotte, with 3 lawyers and 2 investment bankers and Marcus on the phone from Austin. The buyer was a mid-sized health systems company out of Nashville that had been circling us for 18 months. The terms were clean. The number was 38 million exactly, and I signed my name on the last page with a pen that had been placed there by a paralegal who had no idea it was the most important pen I'd ever touched. I went back to my office. I sat down. I looked out at the skyline. Then I called Lena, and she answered on the first ring, and I could hear her screaming before the phone fully reached her ear. My parents found out 3 weeks after that, from my aunt. She had seen a LinkedIn post from someone in the local business community who had attended a networking event where my company was mentioned. She texted my mother. My mother called me. "Your aunt says you sold your company," she said. "I did," I said. "For a lot of money?" "Yes." There was a pause. "You should have told us." I thought about 35 years of anniversary parties and Tiffany bracelets and toasts that didn't include my name. I thought about a place card by a window between 2 strangers. I thought about a photo that happened without me. "I know," I said. She moved on to something else within 2 minutes. She was planning a spring garden and wanted to know if hydrangeas would survive a late frost. There's a nonprofit I've been thinking about for a long time. Since before the acquisition, actually. Since the year I turned 27 and found a box in my mother's guest room closet that had been labeled with my name in my grandmother's handwriting. My grandmother on my father's side. She died when I was 11, before I was old enough to understand what I was losing. The box had letters in it. One of them was for me. She'd written it 2 months before she passed, in the careful cursive she used for everything. She said she saw something in me. She said she knew I would spend a long time feeling like the world had sorted me into the wrong category, and she wanted me to know that she had watched me and she was not confused at all about which category I belonged in. She said she hoped I would find my people. She said she believed I would build something. I have kept that letter in a fireproof box in my closet for 8 years. I have read it when I needed to. I have put it back carefully every time. When the acquisition closed, I set aside $2 million to start a foundation for first-generation women in business, mentorship, seed funding, the kind of structural support that changes outcomes. I named it the Caldwell Foundation after my grandmother, Eleanor Caldwell, a woman who saw me when I was small and wrote it down so I'd know. The launch event was in March. A rooftop in Charlotte, 120 people, a board that I'm genuinely proud of. Lena gave a speech. Marcus flew in from Austin. My colleague Thea, who had been with me at Verity from the first year, cried at the podium, and I didn't expect that, and I almost went with her. I wore a navy suit and my grandmother's brooch, small, silver, shaped like a leaf, the one thing of hers that I'd asked for, and eventually, quietly retrieved from my mother's jewelry tray when I finally understood that nobody was going to offer it. I pinned it to my lapel in the car. I didn't mention it to anyone. It was mine. I gave the closing remarks myself. I talked about what it means to be believed in by someone who has nothing to gain from believing in you. I talked about what it costs to keep going when the room that is supposed to be your foundation keeps rearranging itself around someone else. And then I said this: the most important seat at any table is the one you build yourself. I hope this foundation builds some tables. Afterward, at dinner with Lena and Marcus and Thea and a few others, someone raised a glass and said they wanted to propose a toast. I sat at the head of the table. I held my glass and looked at the people around me, the ones who had shown up, the ones who had answered phones at midnight, the ones who had chosen me on purpose. The toast was for me. It used my name. It got every detail right. I have thought sometimes about whether I should reach out more, try harder, explain myself to my parents in a language they might finally be able to hear. I don't know the answer to that. What I know is that I spent 31 years waiting for a particular door to open, and at some point, somewhere on a dark highway between Joliet and home, maybe, or in a closet reading a letter from a woman who had been gone for 20 years, I stopped waiting and built a different one. Brooke texts me sometimes. I text back. She doesn't fully understand what happened, and I've decided not to explain it. She got a bracelet. I got something else. Maybe in a few years she'll see it. Maybe she won't. My grandmother wrote, "I know which category you belong in." I think I know now too. I used to think the hardest part was being overlooked. I know now it wasn't. The hardest part was staying quiet about it for so long that I started to wonder if I was imagining it. I wasn't imagining it. The place card by the window was real. The toast that didn't say my name was real. The photo that happened 6 feet away from me without anyone thinking to call me over. That was real too. And for a long time, I carried those things the way you carry something sharp in your pocket, carefully, constantly aware of it, never quite able to put it down. What I've come to understand is that the shape of a life isn't determined by the rooms that exclude you. It's determined by what you do in the hours after you leave them. I left that party and drove south on a dark highway and got a phone call that changed everything, and the only reason that call existed was because I had spent years doing the work when no one was watching. That's the part that doesn't show up in any toast. It's also the only part that actually matters. There's something I want to say about integrity, because I think it gets misunderstood. People talk about it like it's a rule you follow when someone's looking, but real integrity is what you do at a folding table in a 2-bedroom apartment at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, when the client count is low and the doubt is high, and there is no one in the room to notice whether you quit or keep going. I kept going. Not because I was certain it would work, because I had made a promise to myself that I was going to find out. My grandmother saw that in me before I could see it in myself. She wrote it down in a letter I didn't find until I was 27, and when I read it, I understood that one person who truly sees you can carry you further than 100 people who perform love without meaning it. That letter became the foundation, literally, eventually, for something I built in her name. That's how cause and effect actually works, I think. Not as punishment or reward, but as accumulation. Every choice compounds. Every year of showing up when it was hard compounded into the company. Every page of that letter compounded into the Caldwell Foundation, every quiet decision to keep going when the people who were supposed to cheer loudest stayed silent. All of it compounded into the life I have now. I'm not angry at my parents. I've thought about it, and I think what I feel is closer to clarity. I understand them now in a way I couldn't when I was sitting at table 12 wanting to be somewhere else. They gave what they knew how to give. It just was never quite enough to reach me, and at some point, I stopped waiting for the gap to close and started building something on the other side of it. Brooke got a bracelet. I got a foundation that will outlast all of us. I think about the women who will come through the Caldwell Foundation. First generation, scrappy, brilliant, probably eating cereal at 2 in the morning, wondering if any of this is going to work. And I want to tell them what nobody told me. Your worth is not located in the rooms that don't call you over. It never was. The table you build yourself is the only one that was ever really yours.